A single father and her daughter were cast out after her wife's funeral until a millionaire women saw them. The summer heat was relentless in the small town of Cedar Creek. James Morgan held his 8-year-old daughter, Emma, tightly as they sat on the cracked sidewalk outside the funeral home. Just hours ago, they had laid his wife to rest, but now they were left with nothing but cold shoulders and empty stares. The town's whispers felt like daggers. Family friends turned away. Neighbors averted their eyes. They were cast out, left to face the world alone. James looked down at Emma's tear-streaked face. Her small hand gripped his like a lifeline, but even she seemed to sense the weight of their new reality. No home to go back to, no family to turn to, just the heavy silence of loss. The summer sun blazed overhead, baking the pavement beneath them, the air thick and still. Around them, life carried on without pause. Far across the street, behind the towering iron gates of the Langford estate, Claire Bennett sipped her iced tea, her gaze cold and unreadable. A childhood friend of James's late wife, Claire watched the small family crumble from a distance. She had seen the glances, the harsh whispers, the doors closing in their faces. But unlike everyone else, Claire did something different. A dusty black SUV slowed near James and Emma, its engine humming softly under the burning sun. This wasn't a miracle. It was a choice. One woman's decision that would change everything. James Morgan wasn't. Always the man you saw now, exhausted, worn, and fighting to keep his little girl safe. Just weeks before, he was a husband filled with hope, a devoted father dreaming of a future with his wife, Sarah. He worked 2 jobs to support his family, always putting Emma's needs before his own. His hands bore the marks of hard work, but his heart carried a tenderness that few got to see. Emma Morgan, at 8 years old, was the light of James's life. Bright-eyed with a curious spirit, she loved painting and fairy tales, clinging to stories of happy endings, despite the sadness clouding their days. The loss of her mother had left a hollow ache in her chest, but she still found small moments of laughter in her father's stories, or the gentle way he brushed her hair at night. Sarah Morgan, though no longer with them, was the invisible force behind their strength. Known in their community as a kind soul with a smile that could light up any room, she had been the glue holding their family together. Her sudden passing had torn through James and Emma's world, leaving behind whispers and judgment from those who once called themselves friends. And then there was Claire Bennett, a woman of wealth and influence, living behind the high walls of the Langford estate. Claire wasn't just a family friend. She was the keeper of secrets, someone who had known Sarah longer than anyone else. Her life was one of privilege, but beneath the polished exterior was a woman quietly observing the fractures in those around her. She held her own pain and regrets, but hadn't forgotten the warmth Sarah had once shown her. Claire's gaze lingered on James and Emma, her mind racing with memories and a growing resolve. Unlike others who had turned away, Claire knew that sometimes survival wasn't about waiting for miracles. It was about making the choice to fight. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows over the cracked sidewalk where James sat. His arms wrapped tightly around Emma. Her small frame trembled against his chest, a quiet sob breaking the heavy silence. The world around them seemed to have forgotten their pain, leaving them isolated in grief and uncertainty. Then, without warning, a soft hum of an engine broke through the stillness. A sleek black SUV pulled slowly to the curb, the windows tinted, just enough to shield its passenger from the harsh afternoon light. The door opened with a gentle click, and Claire Bennett stepped out, her presence calm but resolute, like a whisper cutting through the noise of a storm. She didn't rush forward, with grand gestures or hollow promises. Instead, Claire approached with a quiet kindness that immediately softened the edges of James's despair. In her eyes, he saw no judgment, only understanding, an unspoken recognition of the battles he was facing alone. James. Claire's voice was low but steady, carrying the weight of someone who had seen too much sorrow and knew the power of a simple offer. I've been watching. You don't have to do this by yourself. James looked up, surprise flickering in his tired eyes. He wasn't used to strangers or even acquaintances, stepping into their broken world without hesitation. Emma peeked. From behind his shoulder, her curiosity sparked by this unexpected visitor. Claire reached into her bag and pulled out a small, wrapped bundle. Inside was a simple meal and a warm blanket. You need rest, and Emma needs care. Let me help. There was no fanfare, no dramatic reveal, just the soft assurance that someone cared enough to stand by them when the world had turned its back. It was hope, entering quietly, but with a promise loud enough to fill the emptiness. For the first time in days, James allowed himself a flicker of relief. Maybe this was the beginning, not just of survival, but of something more. Later that evening, inside a small but cozy guest room, in Claire's modest home, James sat quietly on the edge of the bed, Emma nestled safely beside him. The soft glow of a table lamp filled the room with a warm amber light, chasing away the harsh shadows of the day's trauma. For the first time since the funeral, James allowed his shoulders to slump, the weight of grief and exhaustion finally breaking through his defenses. The tight knot in his chest loosened just enough to let a single tear slip down his cheek. Emma, sensing the change, reached up with her tiny hand and wiped it away with a gentle touch that was somehow more healing than words. Claire watched quietly from the doorway, giving them space but staying close enough to offer comfort if needed. She understood that true healing couldn't be rushed. It had to come in moments like these, fragile and unguarded. James whispered, voice thick with emotion, I thought I had to be strong. For Emma, for myself. But right now I'm just tired. So tired. Emma looked up, her eyes wide and full of innocent hope. It's okay, Daddy. I'm here. That simple reassurance cracked the last of James's walls. His grief, once a fierce storm raging inside, began to thaw, replaced by a fragile but real sense of safety. The fear of being alone, abandoned by the world, softened in the glow of this unexpected kindness. Claire stepped in then, her voice gentle but steady. You don't have to carry this all alone anymore. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is let others help. James nodded slowly, finally accepting the truth he'd been resisting. In this quiet room, surrounded by warmth and care, the first seeds of hope took root. Hope that maybe, just maybe, there was a way forward. The day of reckoning arrived faster than James expected. Standing outside the grand courtroom, he felt a storm of emotions swirling, anger, fear, but most of all, determination. The faces of those who had cast him and Emma out lingered in his mind like shadows, mocking the pain they'd caused. Today, he would no longer be silent. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with anticipation. The Whitmore Estates legal team sat poised, confident their power and wealth would drown out any challenge. But James had something stronger: truth. When the judge called the session to order, James's voice rang clear and steady as he began to recount the events. How he and Emma had been abandoned after his wife's funeral, the cold cruelty of the family's rejection, and the hidden truths behind the estate's will. His lawyer presented the letter Claire had found, a testament to his wife's wishes, a final declaration that the estate should support Emma's future, not be swallowed by those who cared only for money and control. Gasps echoed as the sealed will was unveiled, contradicting every claim the Whitmore family had made. The room grew tense, the walls seeming to close in on those who'd plotted injustice. Then, the family's attorney tried to twist the facts, casting doubt, accusing James of manipulation. But witnesses came forward, neighbors, friends, even Claire herself, each adding a layer of credibility and compassion to James's case. The climax unfolded like a thunderstorm breaking a long drought, raw emotions crashing against cold authority. James stood firm, his voice unwavering as he declared, "This is not just about money. It's about justice, about honoring the woman I loved and protecting the daughter she left behind." The judge's gavel finally struck, silence falling like a curtain. The ruling was in. James and Emma would receive the inheritance promised by their mother, and the family's attempts to erase them were dismissed. Tears welled in James's eyes, but this time they were tears of relief and victory, not defeat. For the first time in months, he felt the heavy chains of injustice begin to fall away. Outside the courthouse, Emma clung to him, her small hand gripping his like a lifeline. They had fought through the darkness, and now the future was theirs to reclaim. The courtroom victory was more than just a legal win. It was a turning point, a rebirth from the ashes of betrayal and pain. James walked out of that building feeling lighter, as if a great weight had finally been lifted from his chest. The oppressive silence that had followed his wife's death was replaced by something new: hope. At home, the walls no longer felt like barriers but like witnesses to a fresh start. Emma's laughter, once rare and fragile, grew stronger with each passing day. James watched her bloom with quiet pride, her eyes bright, no longer shadowed by fear or uncertainty. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in soft oranges and pinks, James found himself sitting alone on the porch. The letter his wife had left, the one that had sparked this journey, rested in his hands. Reading her words again, he felt her presence like a warm embrace, guiding him forward. His heart, once heavy with grief and anger, now carried a peaceful strength. He understood that their struggle had forged a new family, not defined by blood or wealth, but by resilience and love. Neighbors stopped by more often now, offering smiles and invitations. The millionaire woman, Beatrice, who had first shown kindness, became a steadfast friend and mentor, helping James rebuild both his life and his confidence. Slowly, James began to see the world through different eyes, not as a place that had rejected him, but one that still held kindness and possibility. He allowed himself to dream again, of a future where Emma could grow without fear, where love would be the foundation, not loss. At a quiet moment, holding Emma close, James whispered, "We're going to be okay. Together, we're stronger than ever." And for the first time since the storm began, he truly believed it. Their story wasn't just about surviving injustice. It was about rising above it, about finding strength in one another, and about the power of hope to heal even the deepest wounds. After the storm of conflict had passed, James found himself standing at a quiet crossroads, not just outside the courthouse, but deep inside his heart. The bitterness that once gnawed at him had softened into a gentle resolve. He realized that this chapter of pain was also a beginning, a chance to rebuild everything that had been shattered. Back at the small house where he and Emma had taken refuge, the atmosphere felt different. The air was lighter, as if the walls themselves had absorbed the healing. Emma's timid smiles grew brighter, her laughter more frequent, filling the rooms with a warmth that had been missing for so long. Watching her play, James understood that this was the true victory, her joy. One afternoon, James sat on the porch, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows on the ground. In his hands, he held the crumpled letter from his late wife, the catalyst for their painful journey. His fingers traced the faded ink as memories flooded back, not of sorrow, but of love and hope. The words she'd written were no longer just a message. They were a legacy. Tears welled up, not from grief, but from a profound recognition. Despite all they had lost, they still had each other. And that was everything. The community around them began to change too. Where once there had been cold shoulders and whispered doubts, now there were nods of respect and offers of help. Beatrice, the wealthy woman who had stopped on that fateful day, became a constant presence, more than a benefactor, a genuine friend who believed in their future. She helped James find a new job and connected him with resources he never imagined accessible. Slowly but surely, James reclaimed his confidence. He no longer saw himself as a victim, but as a survivor and protector. He taught Emma that strength isn't just about fighting others, it's about forgiving oneself and embracing the future with open arms. One quiet evening, as Emma curled into his lap, James whispered softly, "We're free now, free to write our own story." Her small hand squeezed his tightly, the trust between them unspoken but absolute. In that moment, James felt a peace deeper than any courtroom victory, a peace born from healing, hope, and the unbreakable bond of family. Months had passed since the courtroom's final verdict, but the true transformation was far from over. James stood at the edge of a small community center, watching Emma lead a group of children in a lively game. The shy, frightened girl he once knew had blossomed into a bright, confident child, a living testament to their journey through darkness into light. The community center itself was more than just a building. It was a symbol. What started as a modest effort by Beatrice and James had grown into a beacon of hope for families facing hardship. Here, broken stories were rewritten, wounds began to heal, and dreams found new soil to grow. James's own life had changed in ways he never imagined. The hardship he endured had forged a quiet strength within him, not just to survive, but to uplift others. He had begun speaking at local events, sharing his story not as a tale of victimhood, but as a message of resilience and compassion. One evening, sitting beside the fireplace in their modest home, James pulled out the old, rusted key that had once unlocked so much pain, but now symbolized new beginnings. He placed it gently on the mantel, a reminder of the past, but also a promise to the future. Emma, now a little older and full of dreams, hugged her father tightly and whispered, "We've come so far, Dad. Mom would be proud." And James, with tears shining in his eyes, nodded, feeling a deep connection to the woman who had set their lives on this unexpected path. The legacy left behind by loss had transformed into a legacy of love. What once seemed like an ending was, in truth, a new beginning, one defined not by sorrow, but by courage, forgiveness, and hope. As night fell and the stars blanketed the sky, James understood that their story wasn't just about survival. It was about the power of human spirit to rise, to heal, and to create a future worth living. And in that quiet, hopeful moment, the past finally found its peace, and the future shone brighter than ever before. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to smash that thumbs up and hit subscribe for more unforgettable, emotional, and viral true stories. We want to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell us, where in the world are you watching from?